On price and real estate, an agent basically making a price. How do they do that, and how important is that?
So the majority of agents will use either an approach of just do what the sellers tell them or a dartboard, realistically. And that's where some of the issues lie in the market that we're in right now is so many agents are just going with what the sellers say and not actually having a solid backing of where they're getting their numbers from to make it logistical and logical and have an accurate portrayal of what's going on in the economy.
I am here with Adam today, and we're talking about price. Adam is a licensed broker in 5 states, and he is into now coaching. He's here in New Orleans, and he's into basically coaching agents on issues like price, which I think is huge. Um, so when you're approaching one of your clients and you're talking about price, basically give me the spiel about basically what they need to know and do about price. And we can talk about having a passive seller or an active seller. Can you get into this a little bit?
Yes. The first thing I'd like to touch on is exactly what you were saying is an active seller or a passive seller. When we look at the average days on market and we look at what is actively selling and having a better understanding of our seller's motivation of what is their timeline or what is the price that they're looking to obtain. So if they have a very short timeline, well, we can't necessarily hope that aspirational pricing is going to work. At the same time, if they have a longer timeline, we have a little bit more wiggle room to play with, depending upon what the seasonality of the market looks like in that hyper-local area.
You just used a term called aspirational pricing. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah. So it kind of relates into there's a beautiful saying from Russia is you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your friend. And so when we look at pricing, your property and the way you price it, that's either going to sell your house or your neighbor's house. So if your price and your property is somewhat comparable, but they're a little bit higher when you hit the market, well, that is more than likely going to cause your property to sell first. If you went aspirational and thought, oh, ours is wildly better and it's not worth 1 million, it's worth 11 million. Well, okay. By pricing it that way, you've just sold your neighbor's house, not yours. And that's going to then set a comparable against your property and its price, which is going to cause it to sit on the market even longer. And we've also noticed that when a property does come to the market, typically one or two in that area tend to follow. And so if you don't price it correctly and cause it to sell, when those next properties come to the market, you're now also competing against them. And that changes the dynamics of those hyper local markets.
We're in New Orleans. New Orleans is an old city with an old part of town, like a Boston, like a Philadelphia, even like a New York. And so when you're dealing in an old city that is varied, we have subdivisions, the lakefront, Lake Vista, et cetera. And then we have the French Quarter and other historical areas like the Garden District. What does qualities does an agent need to have to be able to price effectively in these checkerboard neighborhoods?
Yeah. So when pricing in, and I like how you say these checkerboard neighborhoods, in really a lot of the markets that I've worked in all the different states, there is that aspect of hyper local real estate. Whereas when you're pricing something in the French Quarter, well, if you go across Esplanade, pricing there is different. And the key thing is to specialize in a hyper local market by understanding what is the normative market conditions for this specific area and really seeing where does it change. And it literally can be street by street and saying that, if we look at what's going on in Marini, that can be different than what's going on in the Bywater, but also parts of the Bywater can also be different.
Well, let's talk about that a minute. So I'm a seller and I have a property in the Marini Triangle, which is close to the quarter and close to the normal Marini. Uh, what am I looking for in an agent? I mean, I want an agent that's going to sell this property. I, as a seller, want the best possible price. So I want an agent that's basically going to maximize that for me. What am I looking for? What kind of questions am I asking this person to make up my mind as to whether or not this is the right agent for the Marini Triangle?
Yeah. So when looking at trying to find the right agent, it is going to be obviously you're going to want to interview more than one unless you find the right one straight away. But it's not necessarily of just, oh, let me go and find a friend or somebody who sells a bunch in this area. It's finding more of a specialist who not only understands the economics of that market, more importantly, also understands the quality and construction of your specific property, and more importantly, understands your specific motivations of what you're trying to accomplish. Because for some folks, it might be that they're trying to sell quickly because circumstances have changed in their lives, or they might want to be taking advantage of the market and don't have a pressing need to sell, would just like to sell. And that can also be selling because of changes in, for example, short term rental rules. We noticed that in 2016 when the Vucare changed their rules and investors said, I'm out, and started unloading properties. So,
Now, and
no,
excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you rudely.
yeah,
Um, Investors are a whole different deal. So look, what I'm talking to you about today mostly is about people who are going to have these as their homes or their second homes. Now, you do have people that, as a second home, you can slip that into investment for sure, and you're also dealing with out of town people or in town people. I'm an in town person, so and I'm basically going to have some ideas of who to talk to. But can you give me some idea of questions and just pretend I'm the agent and ask me some questions as to qualify me for my sale of my property and just say I'm from out of town. I'm from Philadelphia and I'm
yeah,
selling.
okay. So, first, I would ask more on the specifics of, say, like your average sales price. And it's not necessarily just in that specific area, but just in general. When pricing a property and working with a certain type of property, if I've typically been more in the $200,000 range and I'm coming to see one of your properties at the $2 million range, I might not be the best apt fit for that property because of the overall selling style and marketing ability. So, first, understanding what is their average sales price. And from there, then getting a better understanding of what's their average days on market for listing properties. And what is that in comparison to the average days on market for the area? And are they higher or lower? Additionally, asking on the list to sell ratio. So if I list a property for 1.2 and sell it for 1.2, my list to sell ratio is 100. But you might find that some agents are probably in the 98% range and some are lower than that. And what's that in comparison to the market? So if the market is at 95% list to sell ratio, which means if we listed it for a million, it's going to sell for 950. And if my list to sell ratio is 98%, well, then that means it's going to sell for 980,000.
All good stuff. So let's role play a little bit. Okay. I'm the agent. You're interviewing me for a sale of property in the Marini Triangle. You're the owner. Now I'm the agent. Now ask me some questions and I'll give you the answers. They may be frivolous, but I'll give you the answer.
Okay. So as the owner and you're the agent,
Yes.
uh, where is it that you're coming up with your pricing for my property?
Well, I've looked on the MLS and saw other properties, comparables, and basically this neighborhood and base came to per square footage, and here I am.
Okay. And how long is it going to take to sell this property?
In this market at this particular time, it's what's this, September the 9th, 2025. Interest rates are dropping right now. Things are starting to pick up a little bit. I think we can sell this in a couple of months.
Based on your experience on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being, I really don't know, and 10 being, I'm 100% certain that this property will sell in the next 14 days, how certain are you?
Well, okay. If I've only been an agent for a month, I have no clue. Okay. You don't know that because you haven't asked me yet. So, but if I've been an agent for 15 years and you asked me if I've sold a bunch in the Marigny area and I said yes, then I would be in the 9 or 10. But you don't know that yet.
Now, is longevity in the market something that's important?
In New Orleans, it's huge. There's no comparison. I mean, if it's a Metairie agent or a Mandeville agent or an Uptown agent, they may not even qualify for the Marigny Triangle. Now I'm preaching here, and it's supposed to be you're the one that's supposed to be preaching here. So let's just shift this back. I'll be the agent. You can ask me any question you want.
um, okay, so considering that you've only been in the market for a
No,
month.
that was I lied there. I've
Oh.
been in the market for 10 years. So
um, so based upon your market knowledge, where do you feel that we should price our property?
well, um, I I've been through the property, measured it the whole 9 yards. I noticed that it doesn't have any parking. That's a big deal in this part of the world. That would add some real value. I think we ought to price this property around 800,000, and I think we might be able to get 750 for it. I think it's a little bit aggressive, but not overly aggressive.
Mhm. If it were to have parking, how much would that change the price?
$50,000 easy
Where'd you come up with that number?
out of the top of my head, because that's what that would be the value to me to have parking in the Marigny or anywhere near the French Quarter. But that's me.
Okay.
There is no
Well,
magic to a parking spot. And you're right. I probably should have looked it up on the MLS and seen all those properties, gotten that square footage number, and seeing what the variable would be for one with parking, one without. True. You got
mhm.
me.
So, Jim, like you've been in real estate for a really long time
Way too
and
long.
way too long. And so I would like to know what is it that you see that agents are getting right with pricing, with all the different closings that you see throughout every day?
To me, I think agents get it right when they know the area, they've done their homework, and then they go to a meeting, with a listing person with some strength. In other words, a weak agent's going to let a seller walk all over them. Of course, I am not a weak agent. So basically, I'm going to tell them what the pricing should be based upon what I know of the area, the quality of the house. Now, the quality of the house we haven't talked about, but basically, this house is in good shape. Okay. Now, I don't care that it has knob and tube wiring, but basically it looks wonderful. But the fact of the matter is there are some infrastructure things in these places as well. But I don't think that's really important to the buyer. I think it's a emotional and sex appeal, in this market and in this kind of place, that old feel that New Orleans has. I don't know if that even answered your question. So if you want to repeat the question.
No, it was good. And one of the things that you did bring up was the condition and quality of the property. And really, when looking at why properties sell, there are three reasons that I always look at, and it's price, condition, location. And we mentioned a little bit about location. On one side of the street can be wildly different than the other side of the street. And that's in any market, even in Boston, on the same street. If you're on Com Ave or Commonwealth Avenue or Marlboro, if you're on the sunny side of the street, you're going to get a lot more than if you're not on the sunny side of the street. And they're both absolutely stunning properties, but it's that one little thing that can make the big difference.
Yeah, and colder in the wintertime.
And knowing that, we can't change the location physically. And we also would then look at the quality of the property. So, or the condition of the property. And some agents feel that that's one of the things that they can easily fix with, oh, well, we'll just stage it, or we'll have somebody come in and do these little things, and trying to estimate of what these changes could theoretically bring back as a return. And we've got to be very aware of the condition of the property,
Yes.
which is going to help lead us to the overall price. And again, going back to that, the price is also part of the seller's overall motivation.
Let's talk about staging for a moment because you bring that up. So, how big a deal is it that I have vendors in my pocket or available to me to basically stage? And then, what kind of ratio, if there is such a thing, on the amount of money I stage for the amount of money I get in additional sales price? You want to talk about that?
Yes, I would say I'm going to sound like an attorney for a second. It
Go ahead.
depends.
I know a few good ones.
So that's really it. It depends. And one of the things that I would look at first is what's the norm for that area. So if we are in a like a condo area like downtown where there's a lot of new condos being built coming to the market and they're mostly vacant, it doesn't necessarily mean that staging it is going to help get it sold.
Right.
Additionally, we would go the other direction. If we were dealing with a property that somebody had been living in and it looks lived in, it might be better to essentially unstage it and remove a lot of those
Right.
components. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is get that property as close to a model home as possible.
What do you think about virtual staging?
Yes. So,
Yeah,
virtual
that's
staging
tell
is a great way to help people understand the different layouts that are possible. And nowadays, with AI, we can virtually stage a property well beyond of just what would a sectional look like here. We can get even more specific of what would this look like if we were to use Benjamin Moore's soft fog on the walls and do this. And you can literally virtually renovate a space. And that goes into what you were talking about in working with buyers is it's selling the dream or the emotion and tying
yeah,
all of it in together and helping them look past what's right there in front of them and seeing what is possible and helping them dream the dream.
absolutely, totally agree. Um, Maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm gonna wrap this up basically. But as I wrap it up, give me the 3 items that when you're coaching that an agent has to have, and tell me the value of each. In other words, you're basically when you're coaching, what do you wanna get out of an agent or find that an agent is going to have basically to basically get them business and make them successful?
Yes. So the biggest thing that I can stress, and really if I were only to pick one, it's going to be understanding your clients and their motivation. And understanding that as an agent, I control the process and they control the decision. And being able to give your clients accurate and timely, relevant information is what's going to help them be able to make the right decision for them and not having the agent do it.
That was three.
That was one. And that's the
Okay,
only one that really.
give me two. Give me two now.
Two, the second one would be understanding the economics of the market and understanding if there's any seasonal indices that we need to be aware of when pricing a property. When looking at coming to the market, there might be one area of, let's say, the Irish Channel that performs really well typically in the spring. And understanding your seller's motivation if they are looking to price it in Q4 when really they should be waiting until probably the beginning of Q2, being okay with making the suggestion of we should probably wait this out a little bit
Love
and
that.
understanding that we look at when are the majority of listings coming to the market because we want to be right kind of in that middle
Here,
upswing,
here.
not necessarily at the top, which will then have the lag indicator of sales. So being able to really understand the ins and outs of the seasonality of the market. And the third one is having confidence in yourself without falling victim to your own hubris.
Here, here. I like that one. That would be my first, by the way.
Uh,
Adam, is there anything I didn't ask you in this session which you would like to kind of expound upon?
yeah, my question to you would be more on looking at agents and how they price properties. Do you feel that it is the agents that are driving the pricing in the market, either up, down, or to the side?
Definitely. I do. I've been reading a lot, getting ready for this interview about that kind of stuff. I think agents have a huge impact on that because it is such a closed group. The value of a property is less about how much it would be to reconstruct it if it were gone, and also less about the actual land value. So, I think that agents basically, especially knowledgeable agents, and of course, agents have an incentive because they're getting a piece of the deal. Their commission is based upon it. So they're always going to be striving to go as high as possible, but not over that limit. So I think agents in the United States have a huge impact on value. I really do. And an incentive, a great incentive to keep values high. Great for the seller, questionable for the buyer.
Yes, makes sense. And you bring up a lot of great points that in one of the continuing education courses that I wrote called Methods Evaluation, it looks at the three different types of valuing a property. And in the cost approach, it looks at the cost to rebuild and the cost of the land and depreciating the physical structure and not the land to come up with the price. But there's so many what ifs that play into that course really digs into. And it's some of the things that I love the dynamics of pricing and all the different directions it can take.
I would like to teach that course with you. I am licensed by the LREC to do it. So let's do it.
All
Thank you
right.
very much, Adam. It was very enjoyable. Hope you got something out of it. I did.
Yes,
Thank you.
I did. Thank you.
Bye bye.